we could debate because no one, says where this comes from. But Adam Schefter, about 90 minutes before John Lynch talked, put out a report saying that the 49ers and Trent Williams cannot come to a deal with what's supposed to be happening with their contract. And if they can't reach an extension, maybe they would release Trent Williams. This, first of all, 49er fans could not know a moment of peace. Contract year, stuff is chaotic. Non-contract year, somehow stuff is still chaotic. The reason I think this report came from Trent Williams' side is because of when it dropped, giving reporters enough time to write it down and make sure that they could bombard John Lynch with questions. Tom, you and I have been saying for the past more than that, but since we've been doing the show, that the 49ers need to add offensive linemen in the draft. And specifically for the last couple of years, since 2023 offseason going into 2024, is that when he got his extension?
Yeah.
We were saying they need to draft someone to develop behind Trent Williams so they can learn from Trent. You see the Ravens doing this a lot. You see the Eagles did this a lot. They did this with Jason Kelsey, drafted his backup, I think two seasons before he retired. 49ers consistently have not valued their offensive line, continue to not value it. But they kind of dug themselves in a hole. They gave Trent Williams a contract extension after he held out all offseason, backloaded the hell out of the deal so that they could give him a number that he was happy with, but never intended on paying it. They did this with Eric Armstead and ended up cutting him. If you look at Nick Bosa's deal, there's tons of void years and the same thing going on there. But it seems like they went to Trent and said, will you take a pay cut? We don't want to pay you $39 million, which I agree. It's not a great number to want to pay. But Trent Williams, if I'm interpreting this correctly, either said, no, I'm not going to take a pay cut for this 1 year, or give me a contract extension. And that way I'll have more money overall, but you can spread it over multiple years. John Lynch, pointed out that Trent Williams is 38 years old, so extending him, not smart, which I agree with. But Tom, what do you make of this? They're in a situation where, first of all, also in the tweet, it says that they could release him, which to me would make no sense. Why wouldn't you, at the very least, trade him? But mind you, Brock Purdy's going to die. So, this is a whole mess. Tell me, where were you when you saw this report, and what's your interpretation of it?
My basic read is this is agent chess. This is an agent pressuring the Niners to come to an agreement. Wow. And the problem is that you have to thread the needle three ways. You have to make Trent happy. You have to make this work under the cap. And you can't give him so much money and an upfront bonus that the Yorks balk at it. So all three of those is a hard thing to do. But if I had to predict, it would be they will come to a contract agreement eventually, but it's going to be the usual tug of war that we associate with the Niners. The problem is that you're coming up against when free agency begins. It starts March 11th. So they don't have a lot of time to just drag this out. They have to get it done. And I think they will, because you look at it and say, all right, what are the other options? It's okay. So we're going to go into free agency. You can't. This free agent group at tackle is awful. It's really bad.
And you've been talking about the draft.
You're much better off drafting a tackle than signing one in free agency. That's how bad this free agent tackle class is. It's the worst I've seen in years. Then you have the draft, and who do you take there? What do you do? There's some options there, but the problem is that the people that you would take at tackle at 27 are usually guys that are going to need a year or so to adjust to the league. So Monroe Freeling from Georgia, he's only started in 16 games, but he's shown great potential, and he's a great athlete, and he's long, and he can work. Max Ahanachor from Arizona State, same thing. So if they're going to move on from Trent, they don't have a veteran option as a backup. That's the issue. You don't have any good options in free agency, and the guys that you could get in the draft at your pick or near it are not ready for prime time. They would need a year to adjust the league. And so when you factor all that in, I think it means that they're going to have to keep Trent. They're just going to have to try to come to an agreement.
John Lynch seemed, what was his exact quote? He said that they, meaning Trent Williams, agent Trent, and himself, have been having meetings, that they met earlier today, that he has a great deal of confidence a deal will get done. He thinks that they are on the right track, that Trent and the 49ers love each other, that he told Trent, he hopes he retires a 49er and they can hang a banner up there. But then he did say, because Matt Barrows, I think, was the guy who said, what's the issue? Is it the years? And Lynch said, well, he is 38. So which is true, but I like that John Lynch acknowledged that. It was one of the first things he said that wasn't, how kumbaya they are. He said they are 38, but it's everything. Meaning, I guess that the cap is an issue as well. Now, the $39 million does fit under their cap, but as you've said in other streams, the 49ers like to have a certain amount of wiggle room. And then also after the draft and free agency, they're going to have to sign people. Having a huge number like that, if Trent doesn't agree just to a pay cut, which I think is kind of, is it fair? Tell me your read. When I first read it, and because I'm a novice, I go, God damn it, Trent, again. And then I read it a little more and I was like, wait, I don't think Trent's at fault here. It's not like Trent is threatening to hold out if they don't extend him, but they pay him what they've told him they're going to pay him. I think the reason this is an issue is the Niners went to Trent and seemingly said, which we've heard them do this with, and now Kyle Juszczyk isn't as important to the 49ers as Trent, but we've just to establish that they have a history of doing this. Juszczyk came out and said that the 49ers came to him last year and was like, hey, your plays declined. We want you to take a pay cut. And he was thrown off by this. Kind of sounds like maybe the 49ers did the same thing. Like I said, I don't think they were ever intending on paying him the huge amount of money.
No, that's a void year number that's there just for PR. So the player can brag and say, I got X deal, but they can't pay Trent $39 million next year and won't. So the issue is, how do you make all this work for everybody involved? You have to give Trent an extension. Okay. You're going to give him a 2-year deal? Probably going to have to. And then 2 years fully guaranteed, or what are the incentives? I would think that it's first year full guarantee, second year partial guarantee with incentives based on games played, and that they would deal with it that way. But Trent is still going to ask for an upfront payment that's a huge percentage of those 2 years. That's what he's done before. And the Yorks have said, we're tired of doing this, of paying these people a huge amount of cash outlay up front and a bonus. Fans focus just on what's the cap room. The Yorks focus on how much money do I have to spend right now? And the problem is Trent is forcing them, or will force them, to spend a ton of money in an upfront bonus for a signing. So you have to deal with the Yorks. You have to deal with Kyle. You have to deal with Trent. And getting all that on the same page is tough. But, and again, looking at all the options, they don't have a choice because free agency is that bad and the draft at 27 isn't much better.
Yeah. I was going to say earlier when you were talking about the draft, in previous streams, I hope I'm not putting words in your mouth, but you've said that it's a bad offensive line draft.
It is.
You've said next year.
Especially in the first round. But yeah, next year is going to be a lot better. But then next year's draft is absolutely loaded. So, if there's one thing that I want to see out of this draft, it's do not trade any of your 2027 picks for any reason whatsoever.
Yeah, you've talked about that. Is there any way in your mind that you see a trade happening? And
no, the difficulty with the trade is that the team would have to get an extension agreement with Trent before they could make the trade, because otherwise, why would you do it?
Yeah.
And Trent wants a boatload. And so the same issue that's giving the Niners pause would give the rest of the league pause. And it's going to be really hard to be able to sign him. The cap aspect of this, basically, it's if they trade him or if they cut him. If it's before June 1st in the designation, they save $4.7 million in cap room. They don't save a lot of money. So it doesn't really do them any good. Be it trade, be it cut, same cap room savings that you get. They could decide, okay, post June 1 designation. Yeah. If they do that, they don't save any cap room because you have to wait until June 2nd. But once you do, then you get $25 million. One of the things the Niners do is they like to roll $30 million in cap room over to the next year. So what they could do, in theory, they could spend up to $5 million of their cap room and then say, we know we're going to get 25 as of June 2nd. Now we've got our 30 back. So they could spend more in free agency now, knowing that 25 would be coming down the road. That's all the different aspects of this. It gets thorny. There's a lot of different options. But if I had to guess, if I had to put money down, they will come to an agreement because the options other than Trent are awful.
Got it. Do you think that Trent is asking he's just asking for an extension, right? That and the hiccup is
he's asking for an extension. He wants probably 2 years guaranteed, but what he's really going to be after is, I want to be the highest paid tackle in the league. And the Niners are saying, but that's not your play now. You're 38, you've declined. We're not going to pay you that money. Trent's ego, no, you will make me the top paid tackle in the league. And you will make 2 years fully guaranteed. That's where he's going to come in. And I want it all up front in bonus money or a ton of it. And so when he's got that, and he's got the Niners over a barrel because they did absolutely nothing and kicked the can down the road for 5 years at tackle, the Niners are screwed. They have to say, okay, Trent, ultimately they're going to have to bow to him because otherwise team's going to suck. Yeah. You're going to have a guy at tackle that you draft either in the first or the second round who isn't ready to play and isn't ready to start and is going to have the rookie learning curve at left tackle, which is not what you want.
Tom, this is why I say, like, I think, and we've been calling for it, but at the end of this season, when John Lynch's contract expires, I think he's out of there. They knew that they were putting themselves in this predicament. Like, they gave him that contract, and then knowing that at the end of it, they were either going to need to extend him or cut him or trade him or ask him out of the kindness of his heart just to give a ton of money.
Give us money and say, no, the team's worth $10 billion. No.
And knowing that, they made no moves to protect themselves at left tackle.
Of course not.
I don't know. That's why I do want, because I saw a lot of fans, and my initial reaction was like kind of like Trent bad. But then the longer I looked into this and heard them talk about it, I was like, oh, they put themselves in this position. And like, to me, this is just horrible business. They set up a bad contract knowing that they didn't want to honor it. And then did nothing to at least insulate themselves to try to get out of it if they needed to. It's so frustrating. But yeah, and now you're saying, and I maybe agree with you. I think I do, because I don't know what other option there is to extend a 38-year-old player till he's 40, which is
they're going to have to.
And he doesn't play all the seasons. His play is declining. Like, he's still good. He's better. Yeah. They need him right now because they have no one else. But he's not top tackle money worth right now. He is injured a lot, but they're going to have to capitulate because they put themselves in this situation.
Yeah. Well, this is what happens when you follow Kyle's plan for team building. You just ignore. You just say, well, Trent's going to be there for life, literally. So here's Trent at 40. And it's just, whatever. Bigger is it Trent ego? I think it is. I think players invest themselves. And I saw this especially in the NBA when I covered that players are very cognizant, very aware of who gets paid what, and that they want to make sure that they get paid more than everybody else. I'm better than that guy. I'm better than that guy. I'm the best in the league, and you are going to pay me best in the league money. Trent thinks that way. my read on it. I haven't talked to Trent. I don't know. Bigger, you could be right, but I don't think so. I think that this is the way Trent is. That Trent is focused on money. The reason he is still paying or playing going into possibly his 40s, he wants the money.
Yeah.
And he has said that point blank before, that he's motivated by the money and he wants to make sure he gets it. So I think that's what's going on here. Trent is going to be in a position to say, I want 2 years guaranteed. I want to be paid the top paid tackle in the league, and I want fully guaranteed with money up front. Okay. Because the Niners didn't invest in tackle for 5 years straight, because Kyle doesn't value it to the point of, I'm not even going to draft a tackle in the best tackle draft in 10 to 15 years. You get what you pay for. If you pay nothing, then Trent's going to come along and say, you guys don't have any leverage in this. Yeah. If Trent walks, who are their options?
My dad was suggesting that, and I've seen other people
really bad. Let me look at this. Okay, so free agency, Braxton Jones from Chicago, 26, but he had a knee injury in September. He's missed at least 7 games to injury for the last 3 years every year. And Eric's right. He's got Trent has the Niners in the corner. He does. So Rasheed Walker, who's not a good run blocker. Jermaine Elemenor, who is a pass blocker, not a run blocker. So free agency, you don't have anything. Cap cuts, you don't have anything. Draft, you've got Monroe Freeling, Max Ahanachor, Caleb Tiernan. Tiernan would be a guy you'd take in the second round instead of the first. So, guys that can help, but not guys that are ready. Yeah. And so if you want to be a playoff team next year, you have to keep Trent. And Trent knows that.
They're in a predicament. And I'm going to put this question up because it transfers us a little bit, still offensive line, but a quote that John Lynch said that pissed me off. But just because it's like, it's so frustrating to know, you know what I mean? To like look at the sky and say it's blue and then have someone yell at you that it's red, which sometimes feels like being a 49er fan and then listening to John Lynch or Kyle Shanahan talk about the offensive line. And you're like, no, like we're all watching the same game and there's no way you feel this way. But anyways, to transfer into that, this comment kind of brings us there. There's a shortage of good offensive linemen though.
Always is.
That's why they rarely get traded. Guys like Banks, McGlinchey, more getting paid. Yeah, Banks got a ton. McGlinchey got a ton. And you're right. I bet Burford will end up getting a better deal somewhere else that's not the 49ers, which he should. The 49ers should not pay him that. Just like they shouldn't have paid Banks and they shouldn't have paid McGlinchey yet. They're screwed. And this is why I feel like, and Tom and I have been saying, multiple drafts in advance that we were wishing that they were drafting offensive linemen to be in the wings. Because when you look at successful organizations with good offensive linemen, they are both aggressive in free agency, but mostly in the draft, having young guys learn from if they have an all-pro or multiple all-pros, hey, watch this guy, and we're going to draft. The Eagles draft offensive linemen like 3 a year. They're constantly
right,
and their hit rate isn't like they're not expecting to hit on every single one, but if they can hit on one a season or whatever, and that guy's learning from the best, like that, they're constantly having fresh. Anyways,
Howie Roseman would never be in the situation that John Lynch finds himself in now, because he will draft an offensive lineman 2 years ahead of anticipating this guy's going to retire. I mean, that's with Kelsey, for example. They had his replacement in the building 2 years in advance and drafted him in the second round. And they do that at center guard and tackle. The Niners don't, because Kyle doesn't value it. And that's the issue, is that there's a team building, I don't know, I guess a perceptual hole in the way they approach this, that they think I can just keep kicking the can down the road. Well, you can't anymore, because Trent's 38 and he wants an extension and you don't have anybody else. And in this particular year, you don't have good options in the draft or free agency to replace him. So here we are.
What's so frustrating, Tom, is separate from Trent Williams, John Lynch was asked about his offensive line and literally kind of laughed, scoffed, and was like, well, I hear the outside chatter, but we, meaning the 49ers, are pretty happy with our 4.
Yeah, and what about the next 4?
Yeah. And by the way, like, no, who is year 4? Like Burford is going to be a free agent. Ben Barch can't stay healthy. Like, you don't even have a solid 4.
Yeah,
and even
they can address that in free agency. There are a lot of good guards in free agency this year. That helps them. So, Sayamalo from Pittsburgh is the guy that I want. Great pass pro, great run. He's old. He's 31, 32, but he's still elite. And because he's old, he's not going to charge as much or cost as much as other free agents. And then they can develop a guard that they draft behind him that could be ready in a year or two, and that's the way you should do it. Whether that's the way the Niners do it, probably not. This draft is good at guard, but later. It's not good in the early rounds because you've only got one first-round guard. You want it from Penn State. You've got 1 to 2 good guards in the second round, mainly Basantis from A&M, and then the third and the fourth, that's where most of them are. So that's what I would expect them to do is they'll draft a guard, but probably not until the third, more likely the fourth.
Yeah. But which is great, and they do need to upgrade at those positions. I just didn't anticipate the Trent Williams wrench.
Yeah,
but they should have.
Given his contract, it was inevitable, and there was talk before the season ended that Trent was going to do this, and he did. Eric asked, is next year's draft better at OL? Yeah. Trevor Gooseby, who was the guy that I had identified that Kyle would really want because of his speed, he decided to go back to Texas. Problem is that then he's doing that and expects to be a higher pick in the draft than he would have been this year. This year, he would have been the guy they could have taken at 27 that would have worked. But because he decided to go back, he's probably a top 15, top 20 pick next year. But he's the tackle that I think Kyle would want most because he's that quick. Yeah, I think he's like 22 in the GPS. It's something crazy. Tackle running that fast is pretty cool.
I agree. I guess we're going to transfer to some other news that John Lynch went over, although, I'm not satisfied with the Trent Williams topic, but for right now, it's just to be determined.
They're bent over.
Yeah.
They don't have a choice.
Yeah. I agree with you. And I think for everyone watching, I think Tom lays out the reality. I know you're going to see a lot online about how they just need to get rid of him. There's not an option that your quarterback's going to get killed. I think they screwed themselves over, and they should have, insulated themselves for this last offseason or the season before. And then this would be much less of an issue.